Hi, everyone. My name is Shelley Nye. This is my husband, Mark, and we are the area trainers for the greater Philadelphia area, helping people learn how to use FamilySearch. We're so glad that you have joined us today, and we're so glad that you're participating in our group. We appreciate all your comments and sharing your experiences with us. Today, we're going to learn about record hints. Mark is going to give the lesson to teach you how to add a record hint. It can be found on a person page in Family Tree. A record hint is a document or a source that gives you information. Many record hints are about birth, marriage, or death information. They can be an index or a certificate. They can also be a census record or obituary records. Record hints on FamilySearch have a 97-98% accuracy rate. So you want to add them, and they can be found also under the fan chart view, under research helps, and in the descendancy view of Family Tree down on the right side of the page. If you process a record hint on a person page, then the computer is likely to add more record hints and suggestions on that person's page. It senses activity in that part of the tree, and then it scans for more records that have similar information. A record hint can be processed in two ways. It can be accepted by adding it to the page where it ends up under the Sources tab, or it can be rejected by clicking Not a Match. A record hint is important information about the person whose page you're on. It is important to click Not a Match if it is not the right person, because that tells the computers that it is not the correct information that you're looking for. Letting the computer algorithms know that the record is incorrect by clicking Not a Match allows it to refine its search and to search for records and information that can help you. I like to think of it as a logic statement. If this is true, then that is true. That's how the computers are thinking, and you want to work with the computers. Looking at every detail on the record or on the image, if provided, will help you to know more about that individual, helps you to be observant and understand who they are. Turn the time to Mark to teach you about how to add a record hint.
Okay, welcome everyone. It's nice to join you. I'm going to slide up to the keyboard here, and I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm going to go to FamilySearch, to a place that you will remember we were a couple of sessions ago. I was acting on behalf of a Mr. Wissing there in the middle of this fan chart, and we added my parents who were living and then my grandparents. Elaine Catherine Grotz, my grandmother, had recently passed away, and so with additional information about her death, we connected to her parents and her grandparents and even some great-grandparents who were already in Family Tree. So we were grateful about that. Today, I want to use record hints and attaching them as a way to build out the tree for my grandfather, Peter John Wissing. But we will start by going to Elaine Catherine Grotz page. I'll click on her name there in the middle and click on her person at the bottom, or her blue text name at the top. This brings me to her person page. You'll recall that, her name and details at the top with life sketch, vitals, etc. And you'll see over on the right-hand side, we've been calling them record hints, but sometimes they're called research helps in the right-hand corner. It always lists the top 3 that the system has found that is probably a record about Elaine. But actually right above that, you'll see a number 7. There are actually 7 that the computer has found. And I want to just go ahead and see what those 7 are rather than just start with these 3. So I'll click on Show All. And it'll bring me to a different page where now with Elaine's information at the top, it's a list of all these 7 records that the system has found about her. The first one is a marriage record, a Nebraska marriage record. It's actually her marriage to Peter John Wissing, and it lists her parents. There are several marriage records of her children, and then there's a 1940 census, and then another child's marriage record. I want to focus today on this top one because it allows me to illustrate some key points for you. So if you look over to the right, I've got a blue button called Review and Attach. I'm going to click on that. But I do have a first opportunity, if based on the information I see, to do what Shelley talked about, and that is click not a match. In this case, it looks like it is a match, and so I do want to review and attach. I'll click there, and it'll open a new window, which now is about, at the upper left-hand side, attach historical records to family tree. It's split in half. The screen is the left-hand side, talks about the details found in the marriage record. You'll see Nebraska marriages in the collection of 1855 to 1995 with the list of people included in that record. And then on the right-hand side is the information that we have already in family tree. So my exercise is to compare, are these people on the left in the tree on the right, and are they the same people? It starts with Elaine as the primary individual. You'll see her section of the page is bumped out a little bit on the left. And as I look at the information the record provides me about her, it does in fact match her information on the right, and the husband matches, etc. So I'm going to type in a reason as I attach this to her. This documents the marriage of Elaine Catherine Grotz and Peter John Wissing. That's my reason for attaching that here, and then I click the blue attach. It immediately makes this bar of her name connecting the left and the right green, which indicates I've been successful in attaching that. Her parents, who we added last time, are also in this record, and so I want to attach this source to her as well. We want to actually attach it to everybody in this record. If I were to just leave this page and be satisfied, hey, I've attached it to Elaine, I've missed a big opportunity to confirm the relationship of these family members by having them share this attachment on their page. So I'll click on the top one, her father, right in the middle. I'll click compare Ben Grotz and Bernard Grotz. I mentioned last time he went by Ben, but the reason I would attach this record to him, I'll just modify my language a little bit, is this documents the marriage of his daughter, Elaine Catherine Grotz and Peter John Wissing, and then I'll click attach. And as before, it turns his bar green, indicating success in attaching the record. Then looking at the mother, Lena is a nickname for Caroline. I'll click attach, or click compare, excuse me, and now slightly modify this to where it now reads this documents the marriage of her daughter, Elaine Catherine Grotz. So you see it minimizes the typing I need to do because it carries forward my language from one source box to the next. I'll then click attach and her line will turn green. Now I'm going to turn to the husband's side of the family. And clearly this is Peter John Wissing. I'll click compare in the middle. And as I come down here to the bottom, now I'm just going to reverse the names and say this is about Peter John Wissing and Elaine Catherine Grotz. So I'm attaching this record to Peter and Peter as well. Turns him to the green color. Now, listed below at the bottom are the names of his parents. You'll recall I did not know his parents. I didn't know anything really about him. I had an estimated birth date and a death date, but here I've got a record now that gives me his parents' names. That's very valuable. But in order to attach this record to them, I need to move their position on this page. You'll see there is no name on the right-hand side for them. The way I do that is take advantage of this change button in the middle of the screen on the right to change the order of the people on the right-hand side. I could also change the order on the left by clicking the change in the middle of the screen. I personally always choose the one on the right. So I'll click change. It lists these people and I want to say, who do I want to put in my primary position? Again, Elaine has been. So I'm going to click on Peter John Wissing. And now he switches to this primary position and his parents are now listed above him. And I have an opportunity to click add to the record. So when I click add, the system is going to, of course, scour the family tree and say, do we already have Herman J. Wissing in the tree? If not, I'll need to add him new. So I'll click add. It does a quick search. You'll see how quickly it responded. And it found a Herman Joseph Wissing born in 1893 in St. Liberty, Howard County, Nebraska. His wife is Sophia Ike. Yep, that's these two people in the record. I know this is the person that I'm looking for. So I'm able to add Herman to the tree or to this record because he's already in the tree. So instead of selecting create new person because he already exists, I'm going to click select. It will populate the family tree information that we have on the right-hand side. I confirm, yes, it's the same person. And now I'm able to just say, this documents the marriage of his son, Peter John Wissing and Elaine Catherine Grotz, again, minimizing the typing I have to do. And then I will click attach. His bar turns green, and now I proceed to do the same with his wife, Sophia Ike. And sure enough, we knew that she was going to be in the tree with her husband, Herman Joseph Wissing, and I will click select because she's already in the tree. It populates the information that the system already has, and now I slightly modify to say this documents the marriage of her son, Peter John Wissing, and click attach. So now everyone on this page is green. I've successfully attached this marriage record to all 6 of them, confirming their family relationship rather than just being satisfied with leaving it attached to Elaine by herself. Now, if I scroll back to the top, you'll see I can highlight Peter John Wissing's name. And if I click on that, it'll take me back to his page. And if I click on sources here across the top, you will see this source now listed. 1946, it's the Nebraska marriage record. It was added by me on May 13th. And that is the same as it would appear on all 6 individuals' pages. I want to go back now to his details page and continue my examples of adding sources, record hints that we've been talking about for him. Again, there are 3 that are listed here, and there's a total of 7. I will click show all. And as with his wife, there are records about the marriage of his children, Daniel, Linda, Judy, Cynthia, David. But down at the bottom, there are 2 burial records. And if I look at the indexed information, I have new information that I don't have before. I have an exact birth date for Peter and an exact death date. So I'm going to make note of what those are, and then I'll make sure that that gets entered into his record. So I'm going to start with the Billion Graves Index and click Review and Attach on the right-hand side. And as I do so, because he's the only one listed in the record, there are no other names on the left. And it's just asking me to verify or to add this burial information, just a location, which I do by clicking on the word add. And then it asks me for a reason. This documents the burial of Peter John Wissing. Notice I didn't say it documents his death. It's documented his burial because it's a burial record. And then I can click attach. But before I do, remember this record has given me a birth date, where on the right all I knew was 1923. It was a guess. And a specific death date before I only knew it was in February. So I've made note of these 2 dates because I already have something populated there in Family Tree. It doesn't allow me to edit that information. I'll have to do that on his person page. So again, I've made note of that here. So I click attach and it turns his bar green. And then I'm going to go back to his person page by clicking his name at the top. Now I'm going to just take occasion to edit his birth date here. So I'll click on edit next to birth and type in 16 November 1922. Again, I'm going to click the calendar item because that standardizes my date. And I didn't have information about it, where he was born. I believe it was Nebraska, but I'm going to leave that blank. It carried forward my reason from the earlier attachment. I'm just going to delete that because it doesn't relate there. So I'll click on save. And now I want to go back to his research helps and show all 6. And I want to go to this last burial record on Find a Grave. I'll repeat, review, and attach. And again, no new information on here, but I do want to attach the record. So I say this again documents the burial of Peter John Wissing, and click attach. Now, at this point, I want to illustrate one more thing that I skipped on my first two examples because I think this is my best opportunity. Right above his green bar on the left, you'll see in the Find a Grave index that I can view the record, which would be the index portion of this record, or I could go to the website, Find a Grave, to see if there is actually any additional information there. So I'm going to click on Image, and it says, do you want to visit the partner site, Find a Grave? I click yes. And as I bring this record up, look there, there's a picture of Peter John Wissing with the details about his burial, even a short obituary record of his funeral services. But because some people don't always go in and look at the image, that information I like to pull forward, as it were, onto his person page. And so I go ahead and I click and save his image to add it as a photo in his memories. I also save a copy of the obituary and I post that in his memories as well. I'll take occasion to show you that. But again, because not everyone goes and looks at the Find a Grave source, they would miss the picture and the obituary, and I like to bring that forward. So I'm going to go back to his page and, excuse me, back to his home page. And you will see now if I click on sources, I not only have the marriage record, the Find a Grave index, but the Billion Graves index all added by me. On this options button, you can click on that and choose to list these documents in chronological order or in a custom order, however you'd like to do that. I always choose chronological order because it helps me know that I've been thorough in my sourcing documents. I'm going to click on memories and just show you how I've added his photograph to his page. You'll see I've placed it there. As I taught last week, I've properly tagged him and titled his document. And then down here in the documents section, I cut and pasted the funeral notice and titled it properly. So that's now available on his page and people don't have to navigate back through to the Find a Grave site. I hope that's helpful for you to see how that is done because I wanted to be able to illustrate the specifics of comparing documents, how the bars turn green, and the importance of making sure you attach the document to every individual in the tree. Now, if I go back to my fan chart for Mr. Wissing, who I am acting on behalf of, I can get there quickly by clicking on Recents and then scroll down to Wissing 1979. That's the person we had again in the middle of the tree. And I'm going to click on View Tree. And now you'll see this whole bottom left section has been populated because I connected with that marriage record hint, his father Herman and his mother Sophia, and somebody had already entered into the tree, his grandparents and even some great grandparents. So again, starting a couple of weeks ago, all I had was myself. And by adding only just a few records, things of my own memory, and now some record hints, I'm able to populate out the further tree. I just should call out everyone highlighted in blue, according to our little legend here on the right, all have record hints. So rich pickings, you might say. If I went to each of their page, I could add a lot of record hints for them. I hope that was helpful to you. I want to use one more example. I'm going to stop sharing this screen and take you to one more where I've developed just a handful of slides to illustrate the importance of our making sure we look at images associated with record hints. Most all of them have an image. I illustrated that with the find a grave. I also want to illustrate that with another very personal example. This is a snapshot of one of my second great grandfathers, Johann Peter Olsen. Um, and as I was working on his page and seeking to add record hints and source documents for him, there happened to be a record hint one day that was curious to me because it had him listed, but it had a couple of other people that I didn't know. And so I was curious, is this a match or is it not a match? And so I looked at the record hint. It was for John Peter Olson in the entry for Mary Olson Wheeler. It's a death certificate. It's the indexed information is here, and he's listed as father, and the mother is Christina Ellis, husband Jam Wheeler, and I'm thinking to myself, well, my great grandmother's last name, his wife is Christina Ehlers, Ehlers. Somebody by just listening to it could think that was spelled Ellis, but it's Ehlers. And so I thought, boy, I need to look at the image to see what it might tell me to verify, is this really a relation? Because I didn't know anybody by the name of Mary Olson, a daughter of John Peter Olson. So I clicked on the image and looked at the detail. It's a Utah certificate of death for Mary Olson Wheeler. You can see her name at the top, died in May of 1935. Gives the father's name in the red box, John Peter Olson, born in Denmark. And there's the mother's name, Christina Ellis. And again, I'm thinking, well, my uh, relative's name is spelled Ehlers, Ehlers. Maybe they just didn't know how to spell, or they did it phonetically anyway. Um, but the key information here is in the circle right below. The informant, the person who was talking to the officer completing the death certificate, is James F. Olson, and it gives his address. Well, John Peter Olson, my second great grandfather, has a son by the name of James Olson. So I went to his page. You can see here James Frederick Olson, the son of Johann Peter Olson. And I went to his page and looked at the source documents that had been attached to him. And I found a 1930 census, and that 1930 census had him living at 3833 East 13th South 13th East in Salt Lake City. I knew then that this had to be a sister to James and the daughter of John Peter Olson. Well, again, if I looked at that family, there's no one by the name of Mary Olson, but we've missed her. My great grandmother is Nellie Christina Olson there. And so, with that single record hint and verifying relationships, I was able to add Mary Olson to this family, which was a curious thing. When I talked to one of my aunts, my mother's sister, she had never heard of Mary Olson, and she was kind of our family history person. Um, and as I told her about her, she had a hard time really believing it could be true. But as we talked about the documentation, certainly enough, it was her. I proceeded to use some of my research capabilities using the website newspapers.com, and was able to find some further documentation about her, even including a picture. Um, and I added these newspaper articles and photos to FamilySearch. Um, just one other thing to help me know that or feel comfortable that this was a relative is you see Mary Olson. She was known as Klondike Mary. She was a dance hall girl back at the turn of the century in the gold mine era. I've clipped a picture of her from the newspaper. On the left, upper left, is my great grandmother, which would be her sister. And then the lady at the bottom left is my great aunt, the daughter of my great grandmother. And as I looked at those three pictures together, I was for certain that we had for many, many years missed this great aunt, Klondike Mary. It was a fun and exciting experience, all because I took time to look at an image on a record hint. Hope you'll do the same. I'll turn the time now back to Shelley.
Hi. So thank you, Mark, for helping us to be detailed in what we're doing as we document our ancestors. To be detailed, we must be observant. As you noticed, Mark found a new or previously unknown relative by being observant to details on a record image. It could have been easy to bypass this key information, particularly since the mother's name was phonetically spelled, it wasn't accurate, and the informant, the name of Mary's brother, was not even indexed. So looking at that image gave him a lot of extra information. When we want to intentionally search a record for details, it is like turning on a light or opening a window. The light helps to see every detail of what we are looking at. Malachi talks about opening the windows of heaven and pouring down blessings upon us. I believe the heaven is the source of all light. Amaron, an aging prophet, had sacred records which he needed to pass on. When speaking to the future prophet Mormon, he said, I perceive that thou art a sober child, and art quick to observe. He knew that Mormon could be trusted to follow instructions. Being observant and detailed will help us as we seek to discover and document our ancestors' lives. Please join us next Tuesday for our session titled Finding Additional Source Documents from a Person's Page. We'll see you then.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.